Talking financial organization and a professional practice does not have to be boring. Are you ready for a few money in, money out ideas? It's Susan Gunn coming directly to your head to make you think. Can you handle the truth? Because she is known for being energetic, laughs a lot, and gives honest, sometimes direct, but always practical advice. It's time now for Money In, Money Out.
I am so excited about this podcast, which sounds entirely strange when you find out I'm going to speak on the growing concerns of our financial future. So let me revise that to say, I'm excited about the information I'm going to share with you in this podcast. Full disclosure, I am not a CPA, nor a financial advisor. I am simply a financial organizational expert who does everything that she can to help you be mindful in protecting your hard-earned money by whatever is necessary and applicable. Okay, now, having said that, in light of the recent interest rate increases, in light of the potential of a financial crisis, in light of any future crisis, there are some common sense issues that you need to be aware of and tasked to complete and implement however the best you can. The debate is in full swing whether there will be a recession or not, but what there seems to be full agreement on is that the economy has slowed. The impact of a slowing economy has hit us hard in our bank accounts with the rising cost of gas, groceries, replacement cost of appliances is outrageous. Our utility bills, internet rates, the list goes on. Or should I say, grows on. I just purchased a flight for an upcoming speaking engagement, and the cost stunned me. This flight had increased 32% in a year. So let's talk about some of the issues on the table at this time and how to manage the issues, perhaps a little different moving forward. Well, issue number one should hit you flat in the face if you're not paying your total credit card every month. Issue number one, increased credit card interest rates. I have a great credit rating. I pay everything in full on all my credit cards every month. I've not been late on a payment in well over 15 years. And I say 15 years because I really don't remember the last time I was late on my credit card payments. I have a very low debt ratio. I renegotiated my mortgage last year, and I cannot tell you how thrilled I am at that now, 2.5%. And I don't have much left to pay on my auto, which is also a low amount, because I was trained to purchase pre-owned vehicles. Not much, right? I just checked one of my credit card's interest rate, and it has jumped up 5 points to 18.74%. 18.74% interest if I did not pay my credit card in full every month. With credit card interest rates almost doubling, make sure you are paying your credit card in full by the due date stated online or the credit card statement, or you'll be hit with an additional expense that you won't be happy with. A fairly large additional expense, by the way, and a completely unnecessary additional expense. I can almost hear some of the practices saying that they don't have that amount due every month. What do I do? How do you curtail spending? One of my favorite SNL skits, Google it. It's called Don't Buy Stuff and stars Steve Martin and Amy Poehler. Oh my gosh, it's hysterical. I promise I would love to show this every time I speak because it's amazing. When you watch it, you'll know why. I'll put the link in the show notes, but you can Google it. Don't Buy Stuff. SNL. If you're a professional practice, obviously you have to buy clinical supplies to practice. If you're a contractor, obviously you need to buy equipment. If you're a small business owner, you will have your own specific must-have tools to generate revenue. What I'm saying is to be mindful of what you're ordering. Order once a week. Do not assume where you're ordering has the lower prices. Research prices, and don't buy anything that is not needed. It's called Don't Buy Stuff. In my book, Money In, Money Out, I suggest keeping a clipboard with a very simple inventory supply order worksheet hanging in the supply room so that it's accessible to everyone. I include access to that sheet as well as many others on a website hidden page when the book is purchased. Okay, that's my subtle ad for the Money In, Money Out book, which is available on Amazon. This list keeps everyone and every ordered thing accountable for the clinical supplies in their area. Way too many times I have seen daily ordering of supplies as a kind of knee-jerk reaction instead of a well-thought plan. Our priority, shipping charges, when if there had been some thinking ahead, could have avoided the additional charges. That would have been nice. In fact, I just got off the phone with a client, and they have like 30 in 1 week, 30 charges to Amazon. Knee-jerk ordering, not planning ahead. Try the inventory order sheet. Try it. It sounds too simple, but in the long run, if it saves some hard-earned money for your business, is it not worth implementing? At least trying? And if the economy does tank, you'll be glad because you'll already have an inventory ordering system in place that makes sense, right? When the pandemic hit, I heard from practices that finally had the time to work through what their credit card charges were monthly. Some found they were being charged for services that no longer they used. Some found they didn't actually need the service and canceled the service. The point of this is they took the time to evaluate their charges, to evaluate the overall expenses. This is a lot harder to do when you're outsourcing the bookkeeping, but you can request detailed reports from that person doing the bookkeeping. Some of you would save your practices or small businesses large sums of the cash flow if you would simply take the time to evaluate what you're spending your hard money on. Wouldn't it be nice to have more money left over at the end of the month rather than worrying about the bank account balance? My second response is to set up a weekly auto pay with a credit card if you're struggling to pay it off every month. How? I'm so glad you asked. Take the last 4 months of charged totals. This is how much you charge each month. Divide that total by the number of weeks involved in the months. Increase the weekly amount, let's just say $50, $100, and make that a weekly auto payment amount with your bank. Let's say I own a dental practice, and the last 4 full American Express credit card statements shows charges equaled $14,700. Take that amount, divide it by 4, which equals $36.75 a month. Then divide that number by 4.3, which is basically the number of weeks in a month, and that equals $855, rounding up. So if you wanted to, you could set up the autopay with your bank every week for $855, or you could round it up another 100 just to cover to make sure, or you could set it up with a credit card to only withdraw an ACH withdrawal payment from the bank of the remaining balance. That's one way to do it. There may be only a little remaining balance, and it may take a few months to tweak it, but where there is a will, there is most definitely a way to make it work, so you're not paying incredibly high interest rates on your credit card charges. That money is better spent, so to speak, in a savings account. More about that later. If you're not concerned about the full amount being withdrawn once a month, set the credit card to pay the balance due every month, just in one lump sum. All of this requires you to be intentional and accountable. For the past few years, I've been recommending autopaying the monthly credit card bill. I did this because so many were being hit with finance charges because they forgot to pay the bill. That forgetfulness will be an even greater expense in the future. Have you been slack about paying the full amount every month? That's a bad habit that's going to start costing you. I know people who run up their credit cards for vacations and pay off the credit card in time. That's not going to be wise in the future. At 18.74%, that's a lot to add to the vacation bill. Downloading the credit card charges into your accounts payable software, whatever you're using, will give you great oversight to what is being charged. By setting up autopay, you're just ensuring you're not paying hard-earned money that could have been saved, which leads me to issue number 2. Issue number 2, on the back side, savings accounts. Interest rates stink if you're getting a loan or carrying a credit card balance, but they're great for savings accounts and CDs. They're loving it. Oh my gosh, I've been checking the rates to see how far they've gone up. It's nice. The past few months, I've been pleased to see more practices with actual savings accounts in case of emergencies. But there's only one thing. Their money was not in a financial institution that would earn them more than pennies. Big box banks tend to offer the lowest interest rates on savings accounts, but out of convenience, businesses flock to them. Credit unions used to be the best for savings accounts, but that spot's been taken over by online banks. Find out what your bank rate is, then check out the best savings rates available at bankrate.com. I'll put that on the show notes too. Bankrate.com lists all the interest rates for financial institutions, including loan rates, mortgage rates, credit card rates, savings accounts rates, and so much more. So if you're searching for a loan, mortgage, credit card, or any of those, be sure to check out bankrate.com. At this writing, there are 2 we're familiar with on this list. Synchrony is 2.25% interest for their savings accounts. Yes, Synchrony is a bank, and they have online savings. In the few days I've initially started figuring out what to say on this podcast, Lending Club, you familiar with them too? They have a savings account. They have increased in just a few days their savings rate from 2.25, are you ready for this, to 2.65%. Another bank that I've not heard of is at 2.85%, and another is at 2.75%. Okay, so those still sound a little low, right? Well, just to put this in perspective, I researched the big box banks, that's really hard to say 10 times, big box banks' savings account interest rates. Just to let you know, Wells Fargo, as of this morning, is still listed at 0.01%. Chase, also listed at 0.01%. I sense a theme. And guess what? Bank of America. What do you think their interest rate is? Yes, it is 0.01%. Seems low? Well, yes, that's because it is. And yet, millions have their savings accounts with these big box banks. Let's be clear. I'm not endorsing anyone for their savings account interest rates. You must still do the research and make wise decisions. Wise decisions. All I'm saying is to stay on top of it so your savings can earn more money. Point in case. Many, many years ago, my elderly parents had a Chase savings account. It was where a majority of their money resided when it wasn't in bonds. Yet they made pennies on this account. When I started overseeing their finances, I moved that savings to a Discover online savings account, one of the first online banks to offer great rates. They made much more than pennies until the interest rates slowly declined. It was amazing, though. I pulled up the Chase, because that's where they were, savings account statement, and saw the pennies that they did. I couldn't believe it. And I put that money into Discover, and the next month showed them how much more they had made. For two people that went through the Great Depression, that mattered a lot. It should matter to us. And hopefully we don't have to go through anything like the Great Depression for it to matter to us. Bankrate.com also has a simple savings calculator. If I used it right, if you had $10,000 in savings and made a $100 monthly contribution, you would earn $21.82 a month, or $279.51 a year at the 2.65% interest rate. Doesn't seem like much, but it is $279.51 more than what you had at the beginning of the year, isn't it? Let's take that same scenario for the 0.01 interest rates. Yeah, so do you want to guess how much it was for the $10,000 in the bank with a $100 monthly contribution? How much would that 0.01% interest earn? Well, have you thought of it? It earns 0.08 cents per month, or a whole whopping $1.05 annually. Seeing the difference is what compelled me to move my elderly parents' money over to the higher yielding savings account so that it would work for them. I can still hear my 90-year-old dad say, "I didn't budget to live this long." With a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of help, they made it. By the way, it was hard for him to ask for help. If you have elderly parents, you may need to navigate these waters with them. Just ask. Money market accounts will typically have a little bit higher interest rates, even at the big banks, but all the big banks are still low on even money market rates. Whatever the case, make your money work for you. Do not overlook this opportunity. This issue does not just apply to the practice, but to you personally as well. When 2020 happened, it was a struggle for almost everyone to figure out how to make ends meet. Now the doom and gloom, the doom and gloomier financial forecasters state that we're headed towards a financial decline with the rising cost of even breathing, with the cost of everything more expensive. How the heck do you save? 1 penny at a time. And yes, it does require discipline. Most employers pay via direct deposit these days. Here's an idea. Whoever you are processing your payroll through, even if you're using Intuit, all payroll service direct deposit providers allow the opportunity to split the paycheck to 2 different accounts. So one amount can be a percentage of the total net pay, your total take-home, or a dollar amount. If it is tough times, even putting $10 in a savings account is $10 more set aside than they had the prior paycheck. And that adds up to $120 at the end of the year, or $240 at the end of 2 years, or $360 at the end of 3 years. I hope you get the point. And once the comfort of having a savings account is understood and appreciated, that monthly $10 sacrifice could grow to a $20 sacrifice. Sometimes it's helpful that it's out of sight, out of mind, in another account. And one of the things that I like about online banks is that it typically takes 2 days to transfer money into your checking account. It's not as easy to access, which really encourages savings, to keep it in the account and to not spend it. I have long been a fan of Susie Orman, and I'm now a fan of Jill Schlesinger. I follow Jill a lot, and just listen, both of them are so in aligned with my philosophies, money philosophies, I guess is how I'd say that. I think I've mentioned on a podcast before about how I love to watch Susie's Can I Afford It segments. They're great. Viewers call into the show asking if they can purchase something, and they have to provide their financials. Most of the time, I'm yelling at the radio, saying, no, you can't. Stick that money in savings. Or as one of the shows, Susie yelled at the person and said, why are you buying your boyfriend a motorcycle? Has he put a ring on your finger? I kind of felt the same way. It's amazing how few of them are approved because of their financials. And a lot of times it will be because of the amount of debt they already have and the lack of a healthy, active savings account with more than just a token amount in it. So what is a healthy amount to save? For your business, this will surprise you. And I'm doubtful that many practices or small businesses have this set aside. The thought that I kept reading about in my research is 6 times the monthly expense amount. Supplies, utilities, payrolls, everything. Realistically, I looked at a client's QuickBooks file that I've been cleaning up as part of my extreme makeover service. They're a really large practice with over $2 million in revenue and over $1.8 million in expenses. That's $150,000 per month. So if you multiply that times 6, that's going to be $900,000 in savings. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen because of the debt load. Most practices don't even have half of that. Most might have $100,000. Some don't have any. The point of having that in savings is in case something catastrophic happens, like what's going on right now in Florida as I'm recording this. Hurricanes are life disruptors and greatly affect the flow of our businesses, and nobody plans on it. Nobody can avoid it. If it hits your practice, you have to be able to figure it out. So you got to have something, business-wise, in your savings account. For personal savings, Susie recommends an 8-month emergency savings account. That is, your monthly paycheck times 8. Let's break that down. If your biweekly take-home paycheck is $1,300, which is $750 weekly, the total 8-month savings goal amount is roughly about $25,800, depending on what month it is. So, you can't answer me. I can't hear you. You can speak to me in the podcast, but I'm not going to hear you. How much do you have in savings? Are you encouraging your kids the importance of saving money? It's really important that they learn, and they need to learn early. Are you showing them the benefit? They need to see you do that. That's a behavior that needs to be modeled to them, because what they see you do, basically they do as an adult. So I want you to think about that. Make sure you have healthy business, if you're a practice owner or a business owner, business savings, and healthy personal savings. Let's move on to issue 3, which is really geared towards practices in small business management. Issue number 3, chart of accounts revisions. When you walk into a battle, you want all the tools available to fight whatever crosses your path, right? You don't necessarily want to show up to a battle with a kitchen knife, right? Or even a spear if you don't know how to accurately throw the spear at the enemy. And if you had a spear, you might want to hire somebody to teach you how to throw it and hit your target, right? If you have heard me speak or worked with me, you know I'm a fanatic about a practice understanding the practice's financial reports. It is the essence of business management. If you do not understand the reports, keeping track of expenses, that's nothing more than a glorified ledger page. Most owners do not realize what valuable information can be culled in the reports if only the chart of accounts were designed in such a way that they could understand it. That is the essence of what I've done for the past 25 years. For 25 years, I have preached this. I am deeply passionate about practices understanding their finances. That's never waned. But in order to do so, it begins with your chart of accounts. Here are the basic suggestions that I've been proclaiming for the past 25 years. Do not use accounting numbers, but use words that are easy to understand. Most practice owners or small businesses are not CPAs. Then why are the accounting numbers being forced on the ones using the accounting software? Every accounting software has preferences in which the accounting numbers can be turned off. So turn them off. If the CPA wants them, he can turn them back on later. Number 2, do not use the word expense after the expense. For instance, if it is an electricity expense, is it really necessary to have the word expense after the account name? No, it's not. It's redundant. Just use electricity. If it's in the expense type, then it's implied that the account is, guess what? An expense. Just simply use the word, an easy to understand word. Number 3, group logical expenses by the area of the practice or the business. For instance, have all your team member expenses under the same parent account, not scattered everywhere. Have all the owner expenses under the same parent account, not scattered anywhere, just put there. So group them together. Number 4, choose the custom option to show the expenses percentage of income in viewing the reports. This was awesome. I think it was 2008 when QuickBooks offered this option. By choosing the percentage of income, you will know how much each of the parent accounts and individual sub-account expenses are costing. One of my favorite questions to ask myself when I'm tempted to purchase something is, how long do I have to work for this purchase? Yeah, it kind of stops that ordering. And most of the time it's on Amazon. So, anyways, having the percentage of income option selected answers that question, of course, after it's purchased, but don't tell anybody. But it's a really great way to see how much you're spending. And there are guidelines. If you've worked with a consultant, you know that they have guidelines on your spending. So grouping them in the logical area will help you. There are quite a few more that I'll mention in the following issue, but these are the basic ones, the basic must-haves in understanding your financial reports. In fact, I will boldly state that you won't truly understand completely your financial reports unless these 3 basic suggestions are implemented. Do you understand your reports? Have you optimized your chart of accounts to help you understand the areas of your financials that are important for future understanding? Issue number 4, high debt. Oh my goodness. Over the past few years, I've worked with many practices organizing their QuickBooks so they could understand their fiscal well-being more accurately. It is truly one of the most fun things about my job. I get to create something that becomes beautifully understood from something that is quite typically a hot mess and not understood at all. It's awesome. In fact, I often tell the dentist to imagine how they felt when their worst dental case became their greatest success because of the patient's beautiful smile. That smile was worth it, right? Yeah, that's what I feel like. The responses and feedback I receive after the extreme makeover are so well worth it. It's the smile of the business owner in finally understanding their financials. It's awesome. Or in the Ask the Expert conference calls that I do, finally knowing what reports they need to run, to oversee in their practice management software, that's also really cool. I just love doing what I do. It's great. Okay, back to debt. In light of the growing debt, I have witnessed in practices these past 2 years, which is pretty monumental. I recommend one more revision in your chart of accounts. In the loan or credit card name, enter the interest rate. For example, Dry Gulch Bank loan, 4.5%, or Citibank, 18.24%. At a glance, you will see which note or credit card has the higher rating. Obviously, if you've been paying a loan for quite a while, then the actual interest amount every month may be low at this point. But those new loans are heavy on the interest on the front end. And again, if you do not pay the credit card's full amount due, the amount you pay in interest will be substantial. And having the interest rate percentage amount to the side of the name in the chart of accounts list is a little bit of a subtle reminder, as well as seeing the amount in the finance charges separated on the profit and loss report, which leads me to my next two recommendations. Create a separate account called finance charge so as to not mingle this expense with any other interest expense account. Then create a separate account called loan interest. Again, so as to not mingle this expense with any other interest expense account. If you also have a line of credit, create a line of credit interest account to track that interest. These interest rates will also be increasing, and many practices have maxed out their line of credits these past 2 years. Most practices have no clue what the interest rates are for their loans or credit cards when I ask. Having these separate interest charges will be a visual check when reviewing your profit and loss report on areas you can reduce by simply paying your credit card on time, or your balance sheet report as well. Earlier this year, I worked with a young dentist in organizing her books. She never realized how much she was paying for credit cards' finance charges and was aghast at that lost money when she saw it separated out on the profit and loss report. She had only been in practice for a little over a year. No one had told her. She's still learning the business management ropes and thanked me profusely for saving her some money. If you need help implementing any of this information, I would love to work with you in organizing your practice's financial information. By the way, all of this information applies to you personally as well. I've been using Quicken for my personal finances since it was DOS, and I still love it. There are so many aspects of it that I do not use, but it is an amazing tool to monitor my personal credit cards, my mortgage, my car note, and even my investments, all at a quick glance. All my credit cards are on autopay, business and personal. I use QuickBooks desktop software for my business. I use Quicken for my personal. I do not muddy the two by sharing expenses between personal and business. If it's a business expense, it is charged on a business credit card or paid through the business checking account, entered into the business accounting software. You get it. There's a trend, right? There are no accidental payments of personal expenses through my business accounts. That is vitally important for business owners to understand. Even if you are a sole proprietor, separate between business and personal expenses. Only pay business expenses via the business checking account or business credit card and enter those expenses into your business accounting software. Create a 6-lane highway between business and personal expenses. This has been a mantra that I have said for the past 25 years. This time of year always brings a little sadness to my heart. I had a client dentist in the New England area who was a rabid New England Patriots fan. Every September, he would call and trash talk the Cowboys. I don't know if you know where I live, but I live in Arlington, so the Cowboys are our team. Literally, in Arlington. I could give as much as he was doling out, and we would just laugh and laugh on the phone. Oh my gosh, he was hysterical. He had a great laugh, and I could still hear him. But his major flaw was choosing that football team to support. And I'd tell him that, you're a great guy, but there's something wrong with you. I had helped him for several years in separating his practice's expenses from personal expenses that were tangled up in his QuickBooks, and redesigning his existing chart of accounts so that he could understand his reports. Long after I finished consulting him, he still called to give me grief about the Cowboys every fall. And sometimes if it was really bad or we played each other, I really got the phone call. One morning, I got a phone call I didn't want. That was a phone call that told me that he had died overnight. He was perfectly fine. And then he wasn't. I received word back from his spouse, a special thank you for working with him on the QuickBooks, that everything was in great order, and that it made the valuation of the practice so much easier when they were preparing to sell. You know, sometimes death happens suddenly. Sometimes it's over a process of time through illness. And however it happens, it's inevitable. I don't want to be morbid, but, it's going to happen, and it's worth mentioning. And he's not the only client that I've had passed away. Making sure your accounting is up to date in such a manner is a gift to your surviving spouse. And that would include in both business as well as personal. There are many more options for personal accounting software than when I first began in DOS with Quicken, but it's still an amazing desktop software. I love Quicken. Intuit created Quicken but sold it a few years ago, focusing primarily on their personal accounting option, Mint. The other benefit with having a personal accounting software is how easy it is at tax time. I decided to start using Quicken DOS during an ice storm in Houston, where I lived for a brief period of time. You heard me right. There's no need to rewind. It was Houston, and we had an ice storm. It was incredible. I still remember sitting on the floor and sorting out all my receipts for the upcoming tax filing while waiting for the electricity and the heat to come back on. I kept thinking, there has to be a better way to do this. This is just annoying. And I just heard about this amazing personal software that could track expenses. And I decided after sorting those stupid receipts that I was getting it as soon as possible. That was before downloading, you guys. That was back when laptops were 2.5 inches thick and weighed a ton. The thrill that I most remember is how easy it was to reconcile my checking accounts. I could never get the paper ones to reconcile. Some of you guys don't even know that heartache. You young whippersnappers, you don't know what it's like to have to reconcile paper checking accounts going through. It'd drive me crazy. I would keep looking for 10 cents. The rest is history. I cannot believe I've used accounting software in some form since 1993. Over the years, I have honed it to give me valuable financial information and have never once considered having someone else do it for me. With the advent of downloading cleared transactions from the bank or credit card companies, it's a simple process to do this biweekly. In all fairness, I simply do not write checks anymore. Most all of my expenses are paid via autopay through the bank or with the credit card. It's simple, and it's easy to manage this way. I have long believed that software can aid in business and personal success. I love being able to see at a glance what I've earned, what I've spent, and how that compares to previous years. When business is slow, though, I got to tell you, I really don't like reviewing those reports, but I make myself do it because I still have to be a good steward with the money that is available. They are, to me, life tools, if you will. Warren Buffett himself likes to review current and historical annual reports of a company he's purchasing. One resource said he likes to investigate thoroughly and act deliberately. Okay, he's 92 years old now, so I'm not sure how much of this he's still actively doing, but I will tell you from everything I've read about him, it wouldn't surprise me if he is. If your business were investigated thoroughly, what would they find? If you are preparing your practice or small business for sale in the next 5 years, what is your goal in ensuring your financial reports are easy to understand and would compel a buyer to act deliberately? Maybe we should all run our businesses and work on evaluating our financial reports as if Warren Buffett was going to sit down and review the reports with us. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be a hoot? I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't want that. But we should do that anyway. That'd be really cool anyway, just to pick his brain. For the days that could be ahead, it would be really good. It would be really wise for us to be prepared. Like a threatening hurricane, you better make your preparations now, not while you're in the midst of your turmoil. But I got to tell you, in this podcast, I know I've given you a lot to think about. Take it one step at a time. That's how you implement it. One last thing. October 1st celebrates my 25th year in business, working with dentists. God, I got to tell you, just saying that stuns me. Has it really been 25 years? In some ways, it feels like it's gone really fast. I've had the honor of serving an amazing industry. I hate even calling it an industry, but an amazing industry in dentistry. I have made some amazing friends, met some amazing clients and people, and have truly had a full 25 years. I started this business to provide flexibility in caring for my elderly parents. Oh my gosh, I had no idea it would be what it is. It bloomed beyond my imagination. From an advanced QuickBooks Pro advisor to a certified fraud examiner to a professional speaker to an author, all of these have been intertwined in what I provide to the dental community. Never, ever thought. I'm stunned. And I stand amazed. You know, there was almost not a book number one. I thought it would be easy just to pop the information out of my brain onto paper, but technical writing is not for sissies. Every term, every click has to be exact. So after trying for 3 months and saying I was going to do it and trying to get it out of my head and on paper, Daddy came to my house to check on me. As we stood in the driveway, he asked, "What's taking so long?" I could just hear him say that too. Then he waited for an answer. He didn't judge. He wanted to know what was taking so long. My dad and I had a great relationship, and I knew he wanted the real answer. So I said, "Daddy, what if it's a stupid idea? What if no one cares to know? What if I don't sell any books? What if I'm just wasting my time?" And this was in 1997. He looked at me a little dumbfounded, then he shook his head softly and he said, "Honey, you won't know those answers until you finish writing it. Get her done." Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I got that one done. I'm not sure I'd want it out there in the market because I'm sure there were tons of errors in it, but I did run into someone in a speaking engagement said they had that first book. I said, "Don't show it to anybody." Now I finished 46 books, and I have 3 more on my plate now, all because of my dad's prompting and encouragement. Boy, do I miss their encouragement. I've spoken on many different stages to thousands of attendees in different states and countries. The hugs and gifts I've received for changing the lives of those attendees, as well as my clients, have warmed my heart and encouraged my journey. 25 years is a work life of experience. There are so many stories I could share with you. Yeah, maybe sometime. Maybe another podcast. In the meantime, a big thank you to my clients for over those 25 years And I do want to do a shout out to somebody very specifically. If it hadn't have been for her, I'd have never been in the dental industry. So if you're grateful to have me in the dental industry, you need to thank Judy Ruddy. If you are regretful that I'm in the dental industry, then don't call her. She's an amazing gal, and she's still consulting too. So I owe it to her to be in this industry in the first place. Who knows where I would have ended up. Thanks for all the amazing memories to everyone who has shared in them. There are a lot. And here's to many more years to come. I've got a little bit left in me to give and a lot more podcasts to record. So until the next time we're together, be sure you lead with integrity. Take care.
That's a wrap for this podcast of Money In, Money Out. Thanks for listening. Be sure to write down the most valuable tip you learned today so you don't forget it. And remember, you can find out more about all the valuable books and services Susan has to offer at www.susangunsolutions.com.